I quietly left after discovering my wife was having an affair with my best friend after 3.5 years of marriage. I was 34 years old, working as a software developer when I found undeniable evidence of their betrayal. Instead of confronting them, I chose to disappear completely from their lives without saying a word. I packed my things, left a simple note, and vanished. I thought I had escaped for good until a year later when my ghosted ex-wife somehow tracked me down. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Give this video a like, and subscribe if you have ever been betrayed by someone you deeply trusted. What happened after she found me will make you question everything about relationships. Life in Seattle was comfortable before everything fell apart. At 34, I had established myself as a respected software developer at a growing tech company. My career was on an upward trajectory with regular promotions and increasing responsibilities. I had always been cautious about serious relationships, largely due to watching my parents go through a bitter divorce when I was a teenager. Their separation had been messy, filled with accusations and betrayal that left deep impressions on me about the fragility of trust. Despite these reservations, I had managed to build a solid group of friends, including Alex, who had been my best friend since our college days at University of Washington. We shared a love for hiking the numerous trails around Seattle, watching Seahawks games, and debating the latest tech innovations. Alex worked in marketing, and always seemed to have an effortless charm about him that drew people in. He was the extrovert to my introvert, often pulling me into social situations I might have otherwise avoided. My life followed a predictable routine, centered around work, weekend hikes, and occasional nights out with friends. While my career flourished, my personal life remained somewhat stagnant. I dated occasionally, but never felt compelled to pursue anything serious until I met Sophia. The night we met changed everything. I was attending a tech industry networking event downtown, something I normally avoided, but my boss had insisted I make an appearance. I was standing alone near the bar, contemplating how soon I could politely leave when Sophia approached, asking if the seat next to mine was taken. She worked as a marketing executive for a competing company, and her presence was magnetic. With dark, wavy hair framing an expressive face and intelligent brown eyes, she immediately caught my attention. But it was her conversation that truly captivated me. She was witty, insightful, and seemed genuinely interested in my work. What started as casual small talk evolved into hours of conversation about everything from data privacy ethics to our shared love of classical music. By the end of the evening, I felt a connection I had never experienced before. When we exchanged numbers, I found myself actually excited about the prospect of a date, something that had become increasingly rare for me. I called her the next day, breaking my usual rule of waiting, and we arranged to meet that weekend. Our first date at a small Italian restaurant in Capitol Hill was effortless. Conversation flowed naturally as we shared stories about our families, career aspirations, and travels. I learned she had grown up in Connecticut, moved west for college, and fallen in love with the Pacific Northwest. She laughed at my terrible jokes and challenged my perspectives in ways that made me think differently about things I had taken for granted. This pattern continued through our next several dates. We discovered shared interests in hiking, classical music, and international travel. Each meeting revealed new layers of compatibility that made our connection feel almost uncanny. Within weeks, I found myself thinking about her constantly and rearranging my schedule to spend more time together. When I finally introduced her to my friends, including Alex, everyone seemed impressed. Alex particularly went out of his way to make her feel welcome, though I occasionally noticed odd comments from him about how I had somehow managed to find someone so far out of my league. I dismissed these as his typical sarcastic humor, never suspecting any deeper meaning. After 8 months of dating, we decided to move in together. My lease was ending and her condo was spacious enough for both of us. The transition felt natural, as if we had been living together for years. We quickly established routines and rhythms that complemented each other perfectly. Mornings began with shared coffee on her small balcony, overlooking the city evenings, ended with discussions about our days while preparing dinner together. Our relationship continued to deepen, and by our first anniversary, I knew I wanted to spend my life with her. I planned a surprise trip to Hawaii, carrying the ring in my pocket through airport security with nervous anticipation. On our second evening during sunset on a secluded beach, I knelt in the sand and asked her to marry me. Her eyes filled with tears as she accepted, immediately calling her parents and closest friends to share the news. The joy in her voice as she described the proposal to them filled me with certainty about our future together. We spent the remainder of our vacation discussing wedding plans and imagining our life together. We settled on an intimate ceremony at a mountain resort just outside the city. With 60 of our closest friends and family members in attendance, we exchanged vows against a backdrop of spectacular mountain views. Sophia looked breathtaking in her simple white dress, and the emotion in her voice as she recited her vows seemed to validate every hope I had for our future. Alex served as my best man, delivering a speech that managed to be both humorous and touching. He spoke about how happy he was to see his best friend find someone so perfect, raising a toast to what he called a match made in heaven. In that moment, surrounded by loved ones celebrating our union, I felt completely happy and secure in our future together. After the wedding, we purchased a house in the suburbs, complete with the yard Sophia had always wanted for the golden retriever we planned to adopt. We spent weekends painting rooms and shopping for furniture, creating a home that reflected both our personalities. I truly believed we were building the foundation for a lifetime of happiness together. The first year of our marriage was everything I had hoped it would be. We settled into a comfortable routine, balancing careers with quality time together. Weekends were filled with adventures, exploring hidden corners of the Pacific Northwest, from coastal towns to mountain trails. We hosted dinner parties for friends, planned for our financial future, and even started discussing when we might want to start trying for children. At the 18-month mark of our marriage, I received a significant promotion that came with more responsibility and occasional travel requirements. The new position was challenging but rewarding, and Sophia seemed supportive of my career advancement. She helped me shop for new suits, appropriate for my executive meetings, and listened patiently when I needed to work through complex problems aloud. Around this time, I began noticing subtle shifts in our relationship. Initially, they were so small that I dismissed them as normal fluctuations in any long-term relationship. Sophia started staying later at work more frequently, explaining that her team was pitching for major new clients. When she mentioned joining a new networking group that met for drinks on Thursday evenings, I encouraged her expanding social circle, never questioning why I rarely met any of these new friends. Our physical intimacy gradually decreased with Sophia, often citing exhaustion or stress from work when I initiated. Again, I rationalized this as a temporary phase related to our busy careers. When she began checking her phone more frequently and stepping away for calls, I assumed it was work-related pressure following her recent promotion. One evening, I noticed she had changed the passwords on her devices. When I mentioned it casually, she explained that her company had implemented new security protocols requiring regular password changes and two-factor authentication. The explanation seemed reasonable, and I never considered questioning it further. During this period, Alex went through an unexpected divorce. His wife had apparently found messages suggesting emotional infidelity with a coworker. The situation seemed to affect Sophia deeply, and she went out of her way to support him through the difficult time. She suggested having him over for dinner more frequently, and volunteered to help him navigate the legal aspects of his separation. I thought nothing of it when Alex began stopping by to help with house projects while I was at work. Sophia explained that he needed the distraction from his divorce proceedings, and the tasks gave him purpose during a difficult time. They fixed the deck railings, repainted the guest bathroom, and installed new light fixtures in the kitchen. I was grateful for his help and her compassion toward my friend. During group gatherings, I began noticing a growing closeness between them. They seemed to share inside jokes I was not part of, and had developed a shorthand communication that excluded others. At times, I entered rooms to find them in deep conversation that abruptly shifted when they noticed my presence. Still, I trusted both of them completely and pushed away any flickers of suspicion. As months passed, I sensed an increasing emotional distance between Sophia and myself. I made deliberate efforts to reconnect, planning surprise weekend getaways that were often canceled at the last minute due to her unexpected work commitments. I cooked special meals, arranged date nights, and bought thoughtful gifts that seemed to elicit only polite appreciation rather than genuine excitement. When I gently suggested we might benefit from couples therapy to help us navigate this busy phase of our careers, Sophia reacted defensively, insisting there was nothing wrong with our relationship that required professional intervention. She attributed any perceived distance to my own insecurities and the pressure of my new position. Rather than push the issue and create conflict, I accepted her explanation and redoubled my efforts to be more understanding. After nearly 2 years of marriage, I was scheduled for a major project in San Francisco that would keep me away for 2 weeks. Sophia seemed almost relieved by my upcoming absence, suggesting it might be good for us to have some space. The comment stung, but I focused on the project, determined to complete it successfully. The San Francisco team worked efficiently, and we completed the implementation several days ahead of schedule. Rather than stay the full 2 weeks, I decided to surprise Sophia by returning home early. I imagined the romantic reunion we might have, and how the unexpected time together might help rebuild our connection. When I arrived home, unannounced, the house had a strange atmosphere. Though no one was home, there were 2 wine glasses in the sink, and a faint scent of unfamiliar cologne lingering in our living room. As I unpacked my suitcase, I glanced out the bedroom window and noticed a familiar car parked down the street rather than in our driveway. It was the same model and color as Alex, but parked far enough away that I could not confirm the license plate. The coincidence seemed odd, but I dismissed my growing unease as paranoia. Sophia arrived home an hour later, clearly startled to find me there. She explained the wine glasses as remnants from a visit by a female colleague who had stopped by to discuss a work project. When I mentioned the cologne, she suggested it might be from the Uber she had taken home. Her explanations were plausible, but something in her nervous demeanor fed my nascent suspicions. That night I lay awake beside her, replaying recent months in my mind and connecting dots I had previously ignored. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider the possibility that something might be seriously wrong in our marriage. The next morning, Sophia left for an early meeting, kissing me goodbye, as if nothing were amiss. After she departed, I sat in our kitchen with a growing sense of dread. Though I had never been the type to invade privacy, the constellation of small inconsistencies had become impossible to ignore. With shaking hands, I walked to her home office where she had left her laptop. To my surprise, it was still open with her email account logged in. This carelessness seemed unlike her, especially given her recent concerns about digital security. As I moved the mouse to close the laptop properly, a new message notification appeared from a sender named Alex. My finger hovered over the mouse morality, battling with suspicion. After a moment of internal struggle, I clicked. What I found was not just a single email, but an entire thread stretching back months between my wife and my best friend. As I scrolled through their correspondence, my world collapsed around me. The affair had begun just 10 months into our marriage, during a period when I had been working late on a critical project. Their messages detailed secret meetings at hotels when I was traveling for work. There were explicit descriptions of encounters in our home when I was absent, sometimes just hours before I returned. They had established regular rendezvous routines using code words and designated meeting spots to avoid detection. More devastating than the physical betrayal was the emotional intimacy revealed in their exchanges. They discussed future plans together, contemplating when and how they might eventually come clean about their relationship. Sophia had written about feeling trapped in our marriage despite her attempts to create distance, while Alex responded with assurances that they would find a way to be together openly. With growing nausea, I continued my investigation. Phone records revealed thousands of text messages exchanged during all hours, including times when she had been lying beside me in bed. A hidden folder on our shared cloud storage contained dozens of intimate photos never meant for my eyes. I discovered a secret credit card statement showing charges at hotels on weekends when Sophia had claimed to be attending work retreats. Most painful was discovering a vacation they had begun planning for after what they referred to as the eventual divorce. They had researched destinations, discussed timing, and even joked about using points accumulated on our joint credit card to fund their getaway. The betrayal extended beyond just the two of them. Several messages referenced mutual friends who knew about their relationship but had maintained the secret. I learned that during group gatherings, some friends had actively helped create opportunities for them to slip away together unnoticed. People I had considered close friends had looked me in the eye for months while knowing my wife and best friend were betraying me. I found financial evidence of gifts Alex had purchased for Sophia using money from his recent divorce settlement. There were receipts for jewelry I had never seen her wear, and designer items she had claimed were work purchases. They had created an entire parallel relationship funded partly by my own income as I continued to cover most of our household expenses. The messages contained something even more hurtful than the deception itself. There were exchanges mocking my trust and what they called my obliviousness. They had developed private jokes about how easily I accepted explanations for their behavior with Alex, once commenting that I was too busy coding to notice what was happening right under my nose. Sophia had responded that my trusting nature made their relationship possible, calling it both a blessing and a curse. As the evidence mounted, I experienced physical symptoms of shock. My hands trembled uncontrollably. My breathing became shallow, and several times I had to run to the bathroom certain I would be sick. Despite having not eaten since the previous evening, my stomach heaved repeatedly, as my body processed the trauma my mind was still struggling to accept. For the next 3 nights, I barely slept. I reviewed years of memories, searching for missed signals and warning signs I should have recognized. Moments that had seemed innocent at the time now appeared obvious. In retrospect, her increased protectiveness of her phone, Alex bringing up my work travel in group settings, the growing frequency of coincidental meetings between them. I oscillated between overwhelming anger and profound sadness. One moment, I would find myself planning a dramatic confrontation, imagining the satisfaction of watching their faces as I revealed my knowledge of their betrayal. The next, I would collapse into grief for the relationship I had believed in so completely and the future that now lay in ruins. Throughout this period, I somehow maintained a normal appearance at work. I attended meetings, contributed to discussions, and met deadlines while carrying the devastating secret. Colleagues who commented on my subdued demeanor accepted my explanation of fatigue from the San Francisco project. As days passed, my initial impulse for immediate confrontation gave way to more strategic thinking. I realized that any confrontation would likely result in denial, minimization, or blame shifting. I had no desire to hear excuses or watch them perform remorse once caught. More importantly, I recognized that my emotional well-being depended on reclaiming control of the situation rather than reacting to their betrayal on their terms. During lunch breaks, I consulted with a divorce attorney who advised me to document everything methodically. I forwarded all evidence to a new email account they could not access, took screenshots of messages, and created detailed timelines of their affair. I secured copies of all important financial documents and began separating my personal finances from our joint accounts without withdrawing suspiciously large sums. I located a furnished apartment in a different neighborhood that accepted a month-to-month lease. I arranged for a storage unit, where I could temporarily keep personal belongings and family heirlooms that held sentimental value. Throughout this process, I maintained absolute secrecy, ensuring that neither Sophia nor anyone in our social circles suspected my knowledge or plans. The divorce attorney assured me that the extensive evidence would likely result in a favorable settlement given the documented infidelity. Though Washington is a no-fault divorce state, the financial impropriety evidenced by their misuse of marital funds could impact asset division. More importantly, the attorney confirmed that my plan to leave without confrontation was legally sound as long as I formally filed for divorce, within a reasonable time frame. With each piece of the exit strategy that fell into place, I felt a small measure of power returning. Though I could not control their betrayal, I could control my response to it. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down, nor would I engage in the drama they likely expected upon discovery. Instead, I would simply remove myself from the equation, entirely leaving them to face the consequences of their choices without the benefit of explanation or closure. After weeks of careful preparation, the perfect opportunity presented itself. Sophia mentioned that she would be spending a weekend at a work retreat in Portland, departing Friday morning and returning Sunday evening. Through their email correspondence, I discovered this was actually a planned getaway with Alex at a cabin on Mount Hood. They had booked the property using his name to avoid any digital connection to her. The timing could not have been more ideal. I scheduled movers for Saturday morning when both would be safely 3 hours away. I arranged for mail forwarding to begin the following Monday and confirmed my new apartment would be ready for immediate occupancy. On the Friday morning of her departure, we shared what would be our last breakfast together, though only I knew this fact. She kissed me goodbye with practiced ease, promising to call that evening from her hotel. I watched her drive away, knowing that within 48 hours, I would be gone from her life with the same finality. Once her car disappeared from view, I began executing my carefully orchestrated plan. I contacted my parents, sharing the full situation and my decision to leave. Though initially shocked, they offered both emotional support and practical assistance, agreeing to drive up from Portland to help with items the movers would not take. The next morning, the moving company arrived precisely on schedule. I directed them to take only my personal possessions, clothes, books, electronics, and the few pieces of furniture I had owned before our marriage. I left behind all joint purchases and wedding gifts, having no desire to fight over material possessions. The movers worked efficiently, completing the job in less than 3 hours. My parents arrived as the moving truck departed. With their help, I carefully packed family photographs, childhood mementos, and irreplaceable keepsakes into their SUV. My mother moved through the house with quiet efficiency, while my father maintained a stoic silence broken only by occasional expressions of support. Their presence provided strength during moments when my resolve threatened to crumble. Before leaving, I walked through each room one final time, collecting any overlooked personal items and ensuring I had left no trace of the morning activities. In our bedroom, I removed my wedding ring and placed it atop a handwritten note on her pillow. The message was simple: I know everything. Goodbye. No dramatic accusations, no lengthy explanations, no emotional pleas or expressions of hurt. Just the simple acknowledgement that her secret was no longer secret, followed by my permanent departure. The brevity felt more powerful than any lengthy diatribe could have been. As I drove away from the house we had shared following my parents to my new apartment across the city, I experienced a complex mixture of emotions. Profound sadness for the relationship I had believed in so completely. Anger at the calculated deception by two people I had trusted implicitly. Yet alongside these emotions was a surprising sense of liberation, as if I had finally released a burden I had been unconsciously carrying for months. At my new apartment, I thanked my parents and assured them I would be okay. After they reluctantly departed for their drive back to Portland, I set about arranging my belongings in the unfamiliar space. Though sparsely furnished and lacking personal touches, the apartment represented something valuable. A space untainted by betrayal where I could begin rebuilding on my own terms. That evening, as expected, my phone exploded with notifications. Dozens of missed calls from both Sophia and Alex began appearing, followed by increasingly frantic text messages. I read none of them, simply noting their growing frequency as evidence they had returned early from their weekend and discovered my departure. Sophia left voicemail after voicemail, her tone evolving from confusion to panic to tearful pleading. Alex attempted a different approach, claiming there had been a misunderstanding and urging me to call him for an explanation. Their desperation might have been satisfying under different circumstances, but I felt only a detached interest, as if observing characters in a film rather than people who had once been central to my life. I blocked both their numbers that night, along with all social media connections. I had already informed my company about my address change, explaining I was going through personal matters that required privacy. My supervisor, sensing the seriousness of the situation, assured me the information would remain confidential. The formal divorce proceedings began the following week. I communicated exclusively through my attorney, refusing all requests for face-to-face meetings despite Sophia's repeated attempts to arrange them. The evidence I had collected was submitted with the initial filing, leaving little room for dispute about the facts of the infidelity. Sophia initially attempted to delay the process, perhaps hoping time would soften my resolve. When this proved unsuccessful, she tried negotiating for a more favorable financial settlement, arguing that the house had been jointly purchased despite my larger contribution to the down payment. My attorney countered with evidence of the financial misconduct related to their affair, effectively ending these attempts. Throughout the 6-month divorce process, we never spoke directly. Every communication passed through legal representatives, maintaining the absolute separation I had established upon leaving. The final settlement largely favored me, with the court ordering the sale of the house and division of proceeds, reflecting our respective contributions. As the legal process neared completion, I made one final decision to ensure a clean break. I accepted a job offer from a technology startup in Portland, over 150 miles from Seattle, and the memories it contained. The position offered exciting challenges and a significant salary increase, but its primary appeal was the opportunity for a complete fresh start. I told no one except my parents about my destination. To mutual friends who reached out with concern or curiosity, I provided vague assurances of my well-being without specific details about my location or plans. I created new social media accounts under a variation of my middle name, connecting only with my parents and a few childhood friends with no ties to my Seattle life. On the day the divorce finalized, I packed my car and drove south toward Portland, toward a new life built entirely on my own terms. As the Seattle skyline disappeared in my rearview mirror, I felt a chapter closing definitively behind me. I had entered the marriage believing in forever, and left it determined never to be found again by those who had betrayed that belief. My new life in Portland began in a small but modern apartment downtown. The technology startup that hired me focused on healthcare applications, providing both technical challenges and the satisfaction of contributing to meaningful work. I threw myself into projects working long hours that left little time for dwelling on the past. Initially, I maintained almost complete isolation outside of work. My evenings were spent reading, coding, personal projects, or taking long walks along the Willamette River. The solitude provided necessary space to process the emotional aftermath of betrayal without the complications of new relationships or social obligations. After the first month, I began seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma and recovery. Our weekly sessions helped me identify patterns from my marriage that I had overlooked and develop healthier perspectives on trust and relationships. She encouraged journaling as a therapeutic practice, and I filled notebook after notebook with reflections that gradually evolved from pain-centered entries to more forward-looking contemplations. To address the physical manifestations of stress, I developed new healthy habits. Morning runs along the riverfront became a daily ritual regardless of weather. I learned to cook nutritious meals rather than relying on takeout as I had during my marriage. Small daily disciplines created structure during a period when everything familiar had been upended. Gradually, I began exploring interests I had neglected during my relationship. I joined a local rock climbing gym, discovering satisfaction in the focused concentration the activity required. Photography became another passion, with weekend expeditions to capture Oregon landscapes, providing both creative outlet and reason to explore my new surroundings. At the 3-month mark, I felt ready for cautious social connections. A colleague named Thomas invited me to join a weekly trivia night at a nearby brewery. The casual setting and activity focus made it an ideal re-entry into social interaction. Through this group, I gradually built connections unencumbered by knowledge of my past. No one in Portland knew me as the man who had been betrayed by his wife and best friend. This anonymity was liberating, allowing me to present an authentic version of myself without the pitying glances or awkward silences that had characterized my final weeks in Seattle. When asked about my past, I shared only that I was recently divorced and had moved for a fresh start, details vague enough to discourage further questioning. My professional life flourished in ways that surprised even me. Without the emotional drain of maintaining a facade at home, I found renewed creative energy for solving complex technical problems. My contributions earned recognition from company leadership, resulting in promotion to team lead within 6 months of joining the firm. This professional success became a cornerstone of my rebuilt identity. I developed new career goals, focusing on innovative healthcare applications, envisioning a future defined by achievement and purpose rather than relationship status. My confidence, severely damaged by the discovery of the affair, gradually rebuilt through workplace accomplishments and the respect of new colleagues. 9 months after leaving Seattle, I tentatively agreed to a dinner date with a woman I met through a photography workshop. The evening was pleasant, if somewhat awkward, as I navigated the unfamiliar territory of dating after betrayal. Though no romantic connection developed, the experience represented an important step in recovery, proving I could be vulnerable again in small, controlled ways. Several similar experiences followed over subsequent months. I approached each connection with careful, emotional boundaries, honest about my past, without revealing painful details. These brief relationships helped rebuild confidence and reestablish trust in my own judgment about people, even if none developed into anything serious. It was during this period of gradual healing that an unexpected development occurred. A former Seattle colleague who had transferred to a Portland branch office recognized me at a technology conference. After initial pleasantries, he mentioned having heard various rumors about my departure from Seattle. Though reluctant to revisit the past, curiosity prompted me to ask what he had heard. His information proved surprisingly illuminating. According to mutual connections, Sophia and Alex's relationship had imploded spectacularly just weeks after my departure. Apparently, the excitement of forbidden romance had quickly faded when faced with the consequences of their actions. More significantly, I learned that Sophia had been actively searching for me for months. She had contacted numerous mutual friends, previous employers, and even my college alumni association, attempting to discover my whereabouts. When these efforts proved unsuccessful, she had apparently hired a private investigator to track me down. This information created a brief period of anxiety, disrupting the peace I had carefully constructed in my new life. The thought of her potentially discovering my location reactivated feelings I believed I had processed and released. After discussing the situation with my therapist, I reaffirmed my commitment to maintaining complete separation, convinced that any contact would only disrupt my healing. I implemented additional privacy measures, changing my routine temporarily, and being more cautious about social media usage even under my altered name. I informed my workplace security about potential unwanted contact, though I framed it as a precaution rather than an imminent concern. These steps helped restore my sense of security and control. As the one-year anniversary of my departure from Seattle approached, I felt I had successfully rebuilt a life worth living. My apartment had become a true home, decorated with my own photographs, and filled with books reflecting new interests. I had developed genuine friendships with people who knew and accepted the person I had become rather than the one I had been. My career continued advancing in satisfying directions with leadership opportunities that would have been unavailable in my previous position. I believed I had finally closed the chapter completely, having transformed betrayal into an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. The worst experience of my life had paradoxically led to becoming the best version of myself. I no longer defined my story primarily through the lens of victimhood, but rather through the strength found in rebuilding. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, everything changed again. As I exited my office building for lunch, a familiar figure stood in the lobby, looking simultaneously determined and uncertain. After 14 months of complete separation, Sophia had somehow found me. Have you ever experienced betrayal that forced you to completely rebuild your life? What gave you the strength to move forward rather than seek revenge? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey of healing and reclaiming personal power resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about overcoming life challenges. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes walking away is the most powerful response to betrayal.